This episode continues the complete video playlist for the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate, SAA-C03. You're on episode 3 of 15, covering questions 21 through 30. Let's keep going. Question 21. A company runs an application in a private subnet behind an application load balancer (ALB) in a VPC. The VPC has a NAT gateway and an Internet gateway. The application calls the Amazon S3 API to store objects. According to the company's security policy, traffic from the application must not travel across the Internet. Option A. Configure an S3 interface endpoint. Create a security group that allows outbound traffic to Amazon S3. Option B. Configure an S3 gateway endpoint. Update the VPC route table to use the endpoint. Option C. Configure an S3 bucket policy to allow traffic from the elastic IP address that is assigned to the NAT gateway. Option D. Create a second NAT gateway in the same subnet where the legacy application is deployed. Update the VPC route table to use the second NAT gateway. The correct answer is B. Configure an S3 gateway endpoint. Update the VPC route table to use the endpoint. Explanation. A gateway endpoint allows private traffic between the VPC and S3 without going over the Internet. Why not option A? Use S3 interface endpoint. Interface endpoints are not used for S3. Gateway endpoints are preferred. Why not option C? Use bucket policy for NAT IP. Doesn't eliminate Internet traversal, violates policy. Why not option D? Add another NAT gateway. Still routes over the Internet, which violates security policy. Question 22. A company has an application that runs on an Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service, Amazon EKS, cluster on Amazon EC2 instances. The application has a UI that uses Amazon DynamoDB and data services that use Amazon S3 as part of the application deployment. The company must ensure that the EKS pods for the UI can access only Amazon DynamoDB and that the EKS pods for the data services can access only Amazon S3. The company uses AWS Identity and Access Management (IAM). Option A. Create separate IAM policies for Amazon S3 and DynamoDB access with the required permissions. Attach both IAM policies to the EC2 instance profile. Use role-based access control (RBAC) to control access to Amazon S3 or DynamoDB for the respective EKS pods. Option B. Create separate IAM policies for Amazon S3 and DynamoDB access with the required permissions. Attach the Amazon S3 IAM policy directly to the EKS pods for the data services and the DynamoDB policy to the EKS pods for the UI. Option C. Create separate Kubernetes service accounts for the UI and data services to assume an IAM role. Attach the Amazon S3 full access policy to the data services account and the Amazon DynamoDB full access policy to the UI service account. Option D. Create separate Kubernetes service accounts for the UI and data services to assume an IAM role. Use IAM role for service accounts, URSA, to provide access to the EKS pods for the UI to Amazon S3 and the EKS pods for the data services to DynamoDB. The correct answer is C. Create separate Kubernetes service accounts for the UI and data services to assume an IAM role. Attach the Amazon S3 full access policy to the data services account and the Amazon DynamoDB full access policy to the UI service account. Explanation. Kubernetes service accounts allow fine-grained IAM control per pod using URSA integration. Why not option A? Attach policies to EC2 profile. EC2 instance roles affect all pods, not granular enough. Why not option B? Directly attach IAM policies to pods. IAM policies are not directly attached to pods. Why not option D? UI pods do not need S3 access. Roles are mismatched. Question 23. A company needs to give a globally distributed development team secure access to the company's AWS resources in a way that complies with security policies. The company currently uses an on-premises Active Directory for internal authentication. The company uses AWS organizations to manage multiple AWS accounts that support multiple projects. The company needs a solution to integrate with the existing infrastructure to provide centralized identity management and access control. Option A. Set up AWS Directory Service to create an AWS-managed Microsoft Active Directory on AWS. Establish a trust relationship with the on-premises Active Directory. Use IAM roles that are assigned to Active Directory groups to access AWS resources within the company's AWS accounts. Option B. Create an IAM user for each developer. Manually manage permissions for each IAM user based on each user's involvement with each project. Enforce multi-factor authentication, MFA, as an additional layer of security. Option C. Use AD connector in AWS Directory Service to connect to the on-premises Active Directory. Integrate AD connector with AWS IAM Identity Center. Configure permission sets to give each AD group access to specific AWS accounts and resources. Option D. Use Amazon Cognito to deploy an Identity Federation solution. Integrate the Identity Federation solution with the on-premises Active Directory. Use Amazon Cognito to provide access tokens for developers to access AWS accounts and resources. The correct answer is C. Use AD connector in AWS Directory Service to connect to the on-premises Active Directory. Integrate AD connector with AWS IAM Identity Center. Configure permission sets to give each AD group access to specific AWS accounts and resources. Explanation: AD connector with IAM Identity Center provides centralized SSO access without duplicating identity sources. Why not option A? Deploy AWS Managed AD. Adds unnecessary infrastructure. Trust setup is more complex than AD connector. Why not option B? Create IAM users. Poor scalability and violates best practices. Why not option D? Use Cognito Federation. More suitable for application identity, not team-wide infrastructure access. Question 24. A company is developing an application in the AWS cloud. The application's HTTP API contains critical information that is published in Amazon API Gateway. The critical information must be accessible from only a limited set of trusted IP addresses that belong to the company's internal network. Option A. Set up an API Gateway private integration to restrict access to a predefined set of IP addresses. Option B. Create a resource policy for the API that denies access to any IP address that is not specifically allowed. Option C. Directly deploy the API in a private subnet. Create a network ACL. Set up rules to allow the traffic from specific IP addresses. Option D. Modify the security group that is attached to API Gateway to allow inbound traffic from only the trusted IP addresses. The correct answer is B. Create a resource policy for the API that denies access to any IP address that is not specifically allowed. Explanation: API gateway resource policies can restrict access to a set of IP addresses with minimal configuration. Why not option A? Use private integration. Private integration doesn't restrict access by IP address. Why not option C? Network ACLs don't apply to API gateway. API gateway is a managed service and doesn't run in your subnet. Why not option D? API gateway doesn't use security groups. Security groups apply to VPC resources, not edge-managed services. Question 25. A company wants to migrate an on-premises data center to AWS. The data center hosts an SFTP server that stores its data on an NFS-based file system. The server holds 200 GB of data that needs to be transferred. The server must be hosted on an Amazon EC2 instance that uses an Amazon Elastic File System, Amazon EFS, file system. Which combination of steps should a solutions architect take to automate this task? Choose 2. Option A. Launch the EC2 instance into the same availability zone as the EFS file system. Option B. Install an AWS data sync agent in the on-premises data center. Option C. Create a secondary Amazon Elastic Block Store, Amazon EBS, volume on the EC2 instance for the data. Option D. Manually use an operating system copy command to push the data to the EC2 instance. Option E. Use AWS Data Sync to create a suitable location configuration for the on-premises SFTP server. The correct answers are B and E. Option B. Install an AWS Data Sync agent in the on-premises data center. Option E. Use AWS Data Sync to create a suitable location configuration for the on-premises SFTP server. Explanation: AWS Data Sync is designed for securely and efficiently transferring on-prem data to AWS storage such as EFS. Why not option A? Launch into same AZ. Helpful but not directly related to data migration automation. Why not option C? Use EBS volume. EFS is the required target, not EBS. Why not option D? Manually use OS copy. Not automated and less efficient than data sync. Question 26. A company has an AWS glue extract, transform, and load ETL job that runs every day at the same time. The job processes XML data that is in an Amazon S3 bucket. New data is added to the S3 bucket every day. A solutions architect notices that AWS Glue is processing all the data during each run. What should the solutions architect do to prevent AWS Glue from reprocessing old data? Option A. Edit the job to use job bookmarks. Option B. Edit the job to delete data after the data is processed. Option C. Edit the job by setting the number of workers field to 1. Option D. Use a find matches machine learning (ML) transform. The correct answer is A. Edit the job to use job bookmarks. Explanation: AWS Glue job bookmarks track previously processed data and ensure only new data is read on subsequent runs. Why not option B? Delete data after processing. This would work but risks data loss and isn't a best practice. Why not option C? Number of workers affects compute, not data selection. Why not option D? Find matches is for ML-based record matching, not ETL data tracking. Question 27. A solutions architect must design a highly available infrastructure for a website. The website is powered by Windows web servers that run on Amazon EC2 instances. The solutions architect must implement a solution that can mitigate a large-scale DDoS attack that originates from thousands of IP addresses. Downtime is not acceptable for the website. Which actions should the solutions architect take to protect the website from such an attack? Choose 2. Option A. Use AWS Shield Advanced to stop the DDoS attack. Option B. Configure Amazon Guard Duty to automatically block the attackers. Option C. Configure the website to use Amazon CloudFront for both static and dynamic content. Option D. Use an AWS Lambda function to automatically add attacker IP addresses to VPC network ACLs. Option E. Use EC2 spot instances in an auto-scaling group with a target tracking scaling policy that is set to 80% CPU utilization. The correct answers are A and C. Option A. Use AWS Shield Advanced to stop the DDoS attack. Option C. Configure the website to use Amazon CloudFront for both static and dynamic content. Explanation: Shield Advanced offers DDoS protection, and CloudFront helps absorb large-scale traffic at edge locations, reducing origin load. Why not Option B? Guard Duty is for detection, not prevention/blocking. Why not Option D? Lambda plus ACL is reactive and doesn't scale for large DDoS attacks. Why not Option E? Spot instances can be interrupted, making them unsuitable for critical workloads. Question 28. A company is preparing to deploy a new serverless workload. A solutions architect must use the principle of least privilege to configure permissions that will be used to run an AWS Lambda function. An Amazon Event Bridge, Amazon Cloud Watch Events, rule will invoke the function. Which solution meets these requirements? Option A. Add an execution role to the function with Lambda, invoke function as the action and asterisk as the principal. Option B. Add an execution role to the function with Lambda, invoke function as the action and service, Lambda, Amazonos, COM as the principal. Option C. Add a resource-based policy to the function with Lambda, asterisk as the action and service, events, Amazonos, COM as the principal. Option D. Add a resource-based policy to the function with Lambda, invoke function as the action and service, events, Amazonos, COM as the principal. The correct answer is D. Add a resource-based policy to the function with Lambda, invoke function as the action and service, events, Amazonos, COM as the principal. Explanation: Event Bridge requires a resource-based policy on the Lambda function, allowing it to invoke the function securely. Why not Option A? Wildcard principle violates least privilege. Why not Option B? Lambda, Amazonos, COM is for function execution, not event invocation. Why not Option C? Lambda asterisk is too broad and violates least privilege. Question 29. A company is preparing to store confidential data in Amazon S3. For compliance reasons, the data must be encrypted at rest. Encryption key usage must be logged for auditing purposes. Keys must be rotated every year. Which solution meets these requirements and is the most operationally efficient? Option A. Server-side encryption with customer-provided keys SAA-C. Option B. Server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed keys SAA-C03. Option C. Server-side encryption with AWS KMS keys SAA-C-KMS with manual rotation. Option D. Server-side encryption with AWS KMS keys SAA-C-KMS with automatic rotation. The correct answer is D. server-side encryption with AWS KMS keys, SSE-KMS, with automatic rotation. Explanation: SSE-KMS supports key usage logging, compliance, and automatic key rotation with minimal operational effort. Why not option A? SSE-C requires user-managed key provisioning with no logging. Why not option B? SAA-C03 does not log key usage or allow rotation. Why not option C? Manual rotation increases operational overhead. Question 30. A bicycle sharing company is developing a multi-tier architecture to track the location of its bicycles during peak operating hours. The company wants to use these data points in its existing analytics platform. A solutions architect must determine the most viable multi-tier option to support this architecture. The data points must be accessible from the REST API. Which action meets these requirements for storing and retrieving location data? Option A. Use Amazon Athena with Amazon S3. Option B. Use Amazon API Gateway with AWS Lambda. Option C. Use Amazon QuickSight with Amazon Redshift. Option D. Use Amazon API Gateway with Amazon Kinesis Data Analytics. The correct answer is D. Use Amazon API Gateway with Amazon Kinesis Data Analytics. Explanation: Kinesis Data Analytics processes streaming data in real time, and API Gateway enables REST-based ingestion. Why not option A? Athena plus S3 is for querying static data, not real-time streaming. Why not option B? API Gateway plus Lambda doesn't provide analytics capability. Why not option C? QuickSight is for visualization, not real-time ingestion or REST API support. Great work! If these questions are helping your preparation, follow the channel and share the series with your teammates, colleagues, or friends who are studying for the same exam. Continue with the next episode for more practice.